And of course, small island developing states are among those that are most impacted by this. How has your journey from Grenada to the UNFCCC impacted your perspective on how we can support small island developing states?
Well, I have first-hand experience
Yes.
as to what climate impacts have on small island developing states, on vulnerable countries per se. I've lived through 2 hurricanes. I've seen the challenges a developing country has in terms of how to recover from such an impact, where you can have one event. We had Hurricane Ivan, which wiped out in a matter of hours the equivalent of 200% of our GDP. And many years after, economically, Grenada is still struggling to address the financial burden that was taken on. And that's just one example. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of other examples of this across the region and across the world. But that is, when we talk about what hits the headlines, is those extreme weather events. What is often ignored are some of the slow onset impacts. Where we're standing right now, we're seeing a beach that is being eroded by sea level. The owner of this property has had to put a sea wall in to protect their property. We have a reef just sat outside here that has been affected by coral bleaching, by the increases in water temperature and the dying off of our corals, which are there in part to actually protect our coastlines. So you have this whole ecosystem that has been destabilized, continues to be destabilized by global warming. And those slow onset events, droughts. We've seen our seasons, dry seasons, actually rainy season, dry season. We've seen droughts, we've seen floods. Other parts of the world, we're seeing fires ravaging lands and communities. So I'm able to take from my own lived experience here that knowledge of how this impacts ordinary people, how this impacts communities, how this impacts the economy of a country, and then the decisions, the very, very tough decisions governments with very limited resources have to make in prioritizing financial support for education or healthcare or support, social support or its own basic infrastructure, and redirect those resources to addressing whether it's rebuilding after extreme weather events or dealing with the likes of floods, droughts, etc. And dealing with high cost impacts that they have absolutely no responsibility for, but are carrying that financial burden. So taking that lived experience here, then amplifying that globally. My perspective is not just on Grenada, it's not just on small islands, it's on the 198 countries that, as I said, span a whole range of economic circumstances, social circumstances, environmental circumstances.